Welcome back, guys. I got another piece with you guys, for you guys actually, with the great father of esports himself, the immaculate, legendary elder god himself, Walter Day. I like saying those words, right? So we're still here at the International Video Game Hall of Fame. I'm going to get ready to head back to Jamaica, but I wanted to get one more thing about Walter that I think you guys need to know. Something so important, it's the very fabric of the history for esports as a whole, because it has everything to do with the Guinness Book of World Records. Big shout outs to Guinness Book of World Records. Make sure you get your copy. 2020 edition is out this year. You can check it out Barnes & Noble and the local bookstore. So Walter, your history with Guinness, because Guinness was never into gaming. Guinness did records and all this other stuff. Tell us about your history and how Guinness got into gaming.
Well, it was 1983, in the
1983?
summer, that I first started interacting with Guinness.
Oh.
And David Bohm, that's spelled B-O-E-H-M.
B-O-E-H-M. B-O-E-H-M, okay.
In Manhattan. He had founded Sterling Publishing Company. Mm-hmm. And I think around the year 1956, he saw a copy of, I think it was called the Guinness Book of Superlatives or something like that, or something named like that.
The Guinness Book of Superlatives?
Superlatives.
All right.
And it was kind of like a makeshift sort of book. And if I remember right, he bought all 10,000 copies that had been printed, or 20,000 copies,
wow.
And he ripped off the covers, and he invented a new name. He called it the Guinness Book of World Records, and re-covered it and started selling them, and they became a big hit immediately. And he bought essentially the rights to be doing the book. So Sterling Publishing, under David Bohm, who's a genius promoter, was publishing the book from the 50s up until, I think, close to maybe even the year 2000, something like that.
Wow.
I'm not completely up on the history.
Okay.
And I had a close friendship with David Bohm, and I visited him in his office numerous times in New York City. Mm-hmm. And he told me that of all the categories they had inquiries about, people wanting to submit things for, video games was their biggest ever.
And this is in 1983?
This is 1983.
Wow.
And they continued saying that right up to the 80s, okay? So essentially, and he said that they would never embrace the games because there were too many nuances and too many different ways that they just didn't feel that they had the expertise to handle all the different variants, all the different game releases, all the different rules, all the different glitches and bugs and potential ways that they could crash and burn if they tried to actually, document with authority video game scores and video game records. But then he reviewed all the stuff that I and Twin Galaxies was doing, and he said, "We trust what you're doing. We are going to accept your results."
Oh, okay. So let's get into this story then from this point.
So David Bohm said, "So we've examined what you're doing, and we trust what you're doing. So we're willing to accept your results, and you will be the official provider and the sole provider of video game records and rule creation for video games."
So see, this is between 1981, when you created Twin Galaxies, 82, Life Magazine, California versus North Carolina, and 83 with Guinness. This is the formation of the infrastructure to create the rules that was going to govern the governing body that was going to say, okay, listen, this is how we're going to turn this competitive hobby into an actual sport.
In the process of turning over some of the things I just found in my possession, there's like a spiral binder.
Yeah.
And it's essentially, when I discovered it, I found it, and it was dated March 8th, 1983. And what it was all the rules written out in hand. The rules that we now use today in the realm of Twin Galaxies were written out by hand March 8th, 1983. That's how far back Twin Galaxies was a pioneer to create all these rules that still govern the age of competitive gaming today. And so the infrastructure was being put in place very early, and that's why Guinness recognized it and embraced it and ran with it. And so immediately, the summer of '83, some scores were submitted, and it was the first initial appearance of video game records in the 1984 Guinness Book of World
World
Records.
Records, wow.
And close on the heels of that was the Guinness Book of Sport Records, which had a bunch of scores too. And they liked it so much, and there was so much response. And when people would respond, they would forward the responses to Twin Galaxies. So we start fielding now. We're fielding all the responses for scores submission that were coming through a video game magazine, Joystick magazine, and some numerous other magazines, as well as the Guinness Book of World Records. And of course, later on, it became Guinness World Records, which they like us to say Guinness World Records, but at that time it was the Guinness Book of World Records. And so I started organizing annual contests in arcades around the nation where people would play live in front of the authorized attendants I set up. And for one or two of the big years, it was actually notaries. We would hire notaries to go in there and be officially the witnesses to actually sign off on the scores. A lot of people don't know that, but there were some expenses for notaries because notaries would witness the scores and then submit with their notarized signature and stamp the scores submitted, and those would go to the Guinness Book of World Records.
Guinness actually does that still to this day with their referees. They actually do that. Like in 2016, when I did the Tetris Ultimate record, they literally have, well, it's a ref for Guinness, but that's the same thing as a notary, and they pretty much,
So two or three big contests became the lore of the age, meaning the actual boilerplate infrastructure of that early age of golden age gaming. And remember, at that time, it was not golden age gaming. It was the full-blown modern video game age. Because remember, those games back then weren't golden age; they were brand new. That's
true. At that time,
it was
modern age.
It was the modern age at that time. So we were doing cutting edge, modern edge stuff that essentially was creating a historical legacy that is part of the amazing legacy that's still enjoyed today by Atumwa as the video game capital of the world. So as the years went on in 83, 84, and 85, we did contests, two main ones per year. One would be the North American Video Game Challenge, another one was the Video Game Masters Tournament.
I didn't know about that.
And in 1985, it was really big. I mean, we had it in like, I can't remember how many places, but we had it in, I think, 35 major cities around North America. People would go. And people would go. People would leave where they live and travel 500 miles to drive to the nearest contest site because people believed so much into that, and they wanted very much to get into the Guinness Book of World Records. Because in that era, we weren't publishing a Book of World Records. We were just, doing data feed outs and submitting stuff to magazines and doing reports like that. So we didn't have ourselves a Book of Records. All the work I did was handed off to other people, and the gamers the gamers essentially took the U.S. national video game team and went and began to, go out and do promotions with it. And one of the promotions they did was to continue the Guinness contests for 1 year, and then the second year that they did it, even though they did it, it was portrayed as being for Guinness. Guinness said, no, we're not going to run the results of this because we're going to move on to something else now. And Guinness does that regularly, that they will cycle in and out of a subject matter. They will pick things up, then they will drop things later, just like a sports team. Some people get put on waivers, and some people are released off a football team when they are no longer
relevant to the time.
Because
It's a
business, and it's a version of like being at Walmart, where it costs a lot of money for them to dedicate shelf space to a certain product. And if that product stops pulling, then that shelf space gets given to a different product that will pull on a higher level and bring in more income. So eventually, they wanted the pages that were set aside for video games for something else, so video games were dropped. And that was in the 1988 edition. The 1988 edition, if I got the date right, stopped carrying the video game scores, and that was the end of the relationship between Guinness and video games. And then when I came back in, I just started right where I left off, and I immediately started with publishing my own books. So the Twin Galaxies Video Game Book of World Records, the Twin Galaxies official video game and pinball Book of World Records was the product of of nonstop work for 1995, 96, 97. And at the end of 97, it went to press and was published on February 8th, 1998. It was 984 pages, and it had 12,416 scores, covering all sorts of genre, including pinball and stuff like that. And it restarted the whole thing again, and rebirthed the competitive gaming.
And I heard about that because a friend at the time, Taro, he actually showed me the book, and he was like,
I remember Atari.
yeah, so you know, and he was like, you know what this book is from, right? And I was like, no, and he was like, this is from Twin Galaxies, Walter Day. And I said, really? And that's how I first got my hand on the book. He actually gave me the book, and I still have it to this day. I have it in my storage.
So there were 5,000 copies of the book printed, and it came out at a time when the book selling industry was going through miserable things, and there were allegedly all sorts of mischief being done by different huge bookstore chains that were manipulating the way that the marketing and the distributor and the warehouses were going.
Yeah.
And it caused our warehouse that our book was in to go out of business. And if I remember right, at the very end, they said, we're going out of business, and we're going to recycle all the remaining copies of your book that are here in the warehouse. And I said, no, you got to give them to us. I said, nope, we're going to recycle them. We'll send you 200. I think they sent me 200. And if I understand correctly, they went and pulped about, I think it was 1,100 copies of the book. So really, actually, there's only about 3,800 copies of the book that in the book selling world is considered a pretty low run. So it's kind of a rare book in a sense, 3,800 copies.
Yeah.
So if you have a copy, hold on to it, because it'll be a very valuable heirloom as time goes on. But that was February 1998, and the books were shredded by 1999, if I remember. I remember when on October 2nd, 1999, we did the official Hydro Thunder National Championship for the arcade Hydro Thunder, the race, boat racing game.
Boat racing game, yes.
And I remember that Midway, as part of the deal, bought 500 copies of the book, and I've always wondered where those copies went. Fresh shipped straight out of the warehouse to them. I wonder where those copies went when Midway actually got sold and went out of business. So somewhere out there might be boxes with 500 copies of that book. Maybe in someone's warehouse, or maybe in a big book distributor, or something like, or maybe in something like Dollar Tree or something like that. So essentially, Guinness was not to be found. I sent them letters in 1999, 1998, 1995, especially 2000, 2001. They responded a couple times, but generally they didn't respond because they were a million miles away from embracing the video game age again. Because the video game age, from their perspective, I think, had moved on to become even more complex and difficult to get a handhold on. But finally, by the year 2005, they started responding, and they developed, no, it was 2007, they started responding.
Is it 7 or 6? Because
No, it's 2005 they started responding.
Yeah.
And in April of 2006, I actually convinced Craig Glenday that we should do something on pinball. And if I remember right, we did a 4-page beautiful spread on pinball in the 2007 edition, I think, because the contest was in April of 2006.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think it was in the 2007 edition. And plus, I think that they ran a few scores in for video game too. So it was just about the 2007 edition that they started re-embracing video game scores, and also for the first time ever, pinball scores. And the pinball scores were completely done under my auspices, done with my research, and I think that by the time, and Craig Glenday, who's a very dear soul, he's the chief editor. We met. I drove down to, I think it was Oklahoma City. I think the town was Claremont, Oklahoma, outside of Oklahoma City, if I remember correctly. And we went to the Wild West Arts Festival, if that name is correct. And what that is Craig and I went together and watched the world champion tomahawk thrower make a new world record. The world record Bowie knife thrower make a new world record. The world record lariat twirler make it like 220 feet of lariat rope out there spinning around him in a huge circle around him. And then there was a mechanical bull rider who I think made a record. And then there was a fast draw the fast draw person, and then there was the bull whipper, and that was really interesting because in under like 2 seconds, he could crack the book like that real fast, like that, and it was like 30 cracks or something like that.
Wow.
Unbelievable. So it was an amazing adventure we shared together, and we bonded as dear friends, and so we had a strong trust between the two of us as we moved forward to think of what could be done next. And finally, they decided that they would do, I think it was a 4-page spread of video game scores, and I think it had
In the master book.
in the master book.
Yeah.
And I think it had, if I remember right, I think it had 89 different records in it. And I believe that I even actually wrote the text for like 85 of them.
Wow.
I think that's right. All I know is that I did so many of them that it was almost to the major maximum of explaining them and writing out
You did
the
about
text.
90% of them.
About 90% of the records. And when I saw the book come back, it was so beautiful. I was so impressed. I called from Fairfield, Iowa, London. I said, Craig, this is so beautiful. Why don't we work together? And also give you all the Twin Galaxies records. You guys put it into a Guinness format book. We'll make an actual book for Guinness, actual Guinness book for video game scores. And he said, wow, this is really a great idea. We really like this. So let me talk to someone. And they got back to me within days saying, we really like this idea. In fact, we did and I may have the timeline exactly how I may be condensing it. So he said, I think he essentially said, what would you propose? I started sending them email after email of ideas that we could do this kind of section, this kind of format, this kind of art, that, all sorts of stuff. He says, these are great ideas. We're gonna have a focus group. And they had a focus group, and the focus group came back and said that this would be a bigger seller than the normal Guinness World Record book. And so Craig said, well, we could do a partnership, and you could supply the stuff and publish the book. And I think initially, because this is all in emails, this is all laid out in emails, and I think they said that we could do a partnership, maybe even be, I seem to remember they said we could be equal partners or something. But then what happened is the business side of Guinness got in right. Guinness said, no, we're not going to have an equal partnership. We'll pay him a little bit of money and he'll supply the stuff, and that's what it became. But the thing is I loved Guinness so much and I believed in them so much, which I still do today. I think they're awesome, that I wanted to see the incredible heritage reach that level of formal presentation, because no one does a more formal, wonderful presentation than the geniuses at Guinness World Records. So that was my goal now, that I wanted to see everybody become, their success be confirmed and verified and genuinely recognized on a new higher level that I saw could happen by having Guinness take all our stuff that we would generate and put into a very professional, extremely beautiful book, way beyond which I could do with my own book. Now I actually published 2 more copies, because I was actually, during this interaction, I'm actually in the process of finishing my own books, the famous big thick ones with the gold covers.
Yeah, the gold cover,
the second edition.
First and the
cover.
second edition.
And I actually ceased doing that when I saw how good the Guinness Gamers was, because I thought, oh my God, this is so much better than anything I can do and so much more fun to read, that just rely on Guinness as being the voice of our, the voice of our legacy. That's the best way to put it. To allow Guinness to be the voice of legacy. So essentially after the 3rd book, I just didn't think of doing it anymore, because we had it down pat now. Guinness was going to be the voice of our legacy, and we're going to go and do all we can to find the champions and supply them to Guinness. As time went on, of course, Guinness is what it is. It's published. It had more and more people supplied, so that supply stuff and scores and things. So eventually, Twin Galaxies would have less and less of a dominant role and less a dominant role, and that's understandable.
And they spread it out evenly, though.
Yeah. And so that was the way it started. It started because I said, let's do this. Let me give you my stuff and let's do a book. And they said, yeah, we'll do a partnership and everything. And then it grew to become what it is, and it's wonderful. Nowadays, I'm very impressed with it, even though Twin Galaxies has a minimal, if not even hardly any, content in it. And but I'm still a great believer in the Guinness Gamers World Record book, and completely supportive of it. And I think that it is the voice of the legacy nowadays.
Okay.
And and I know that there's a lot of difficulty going on right now, because Guinness recently, banned certain or removed certain scores, like from Billy Mitchell and stuff like that. And I personally don't think Billy's guilty of all that. So I think that's a difficult thing.
Well, let me get into this for a second. So speaking of that, because there's a lot of people out here, they know what's going on right now with the stuff between Billy Mitchell and Guinness World Record. And I actually wanted to touch this topic because I wanted to know what your stance was regarding the whole situation. Because on one hand, here you have Billy Mitchell. This is someone that you grew up with, it's like literally like your son. And he has an issue with Guinness because something was published against him. And then at the other hand, here you have this relationship that spanned literally 30 years between you and Guinness. Where are you on this entire matter regarding Billy and Guinness and whatever is it that Billy's got going on with Twin Galaxies?
What's really interesting, and it is slightly difficult, but as far as the Guinness side of things, I'm still a devoted friend and admirer to them. I want to support them in any way possible. I believe that they've made some mistakes in this particular situation that I'm hoping can be rectified by them. For instance, recognizing Billy as not having cheated and stuff like that. Because from my perspective, as having seen so much of the stuff that went on with Billy, is that I don't think that he cheated. Now I think that just some sort of new level of engineering thing or a mechanical thing, a game thing, just has to be analyzed by a higher level of engineer that has yet currently addressed the situation. So that's to simplify it, how I feel about it. It's just that I don't think the final word's been found on the engineering problems with Billy's gameplay. But on the side of Guinness, I think Guinness is a miracle and a blessing and a gift to everybody, and I want to see their image not be tarnished, and I want to see them be completely safe and go out and move forward, no problem. So I'm a great devotee and supporter of Guinness, but I think that in this case, that there is the need to retract some of the things that have been said or published about Billy, and then move forward.
Yeah, I had a conversation with a friend when I was in Africa. But I was talking to when I was in Africa, I was talking to a friend back in America, and they told me, "Did you see what Billy posted about Guinness and that Walter is doing this against Guinness?" And I was like, "What?" And I read I don't know how that even got out. Someone told me that Twin Galaxies published something that that not you, but Billy put out. And when I read it, everyone is like, Walter's going against Twin Galaxies. No, not Twin Galaxies, Guinness. And I'm like, no, he's not. I'm like, in fact, it looks like you're protecting from a mistake you think they're about to, that they've made or they're continuing to go against regarding. It's not like you're going to fight them or, because you're not a part of the litigation or anything like that.
I am not a plaintiff in the lawsuit that is involved in this, or at least it's not a lawsuit. I don't think it's a lawsuit.
No, it's not even a lawsuit
yet. It's not
yet.
a lawsuit. What it is, it's a request for retraction because they feel that the evidence wasn't proper and therefore it's not suitable for Billy to have been treated that way. So my perspective on it, concerning Twin Galaxies and Guinness, is that both of them are like my children.
Yeah.
And I would want to protect both of them and keep both of their reputations safe and harmonious, and continue to revere them and have the public revere them too. So I want to see this be solved amicably, but also correctly, because there's just so much more that needs to come out about the situation that currently isn't available, and that's my perspective. And so I'm looking forward to seeing Guinness and Twin Galaxies move forward in a positive, harmonious way, but also a higher level of engineering expertise be brought in to solve the mystery of Billy's gameplay, because I was there and I saw that he wasn't using MAME and that he didn't embrace MAME and he had nothing to do with MAMEs, and that's the main accusation, that he had used MAME for his gameplay.
But the funny part is that Twin Galaxies said they never said he used MAME, which this is the big problem. What was published in the book and the judgment laid down from Twin Galaxies, the statement from Twin Galaxies, and this is, so no one gets it confused, this is not Walter Day's Twin Galaxies. He sold Twin Galaxies in 2014 to Jace Hall. So this is a new administration. So the administration in which Billy Mitchell did his world records were under Walter Day's tenure in Twin Galaxies. And the modern Twin Galaxies is now run by Jace Hall. And so what Jace Hall replied stating that Twin Galaxies did not call Billy a cheater and never stated that Billy used MAME. And I'm dumbfounded by that, because I'm like, okay, if you didn't call him a cheater and you never said he used MAME, then what is the punishment based on, and then why was that published in the Guinness book? So these are the type of conversations I was having with people, and I'd said to people, Walter is not a confronting type of person. If anything, Walter simply wants to get the truth out, and the truth of the matter fact of the truth is that Billy didn't cheat, and he wants to try to protect Guinness from making a historical mistake. And one of those big mistakes was like Guinness is saying that he didn't do the perfect Pac-Man, but that's like literally not only video documented, but that was published in so many different platforms, and here's a mistake being made, and you just want to make sure that Guinness is on the factual, historical side of the truth. And they said, well, that's not how it is. So my thing was that when I go to the Hall of Fame, I'm going to talk to you and get your point of view on it. In that, do you think, based on my assessment of the situation, is it accurate to look at it that you're just literally trying to protect Guinness with the truth of what actually happened, or is there something else to that?
Well, no, that simplifies it. You just said a lot of stuff that I don't need to repeat. Essentially, I believe in Guinness, and I think that they're a godsend for the gaming community, and so I would want to protect them. Just like I said, they're like my, the gamers edition is like my son. Twin Galaxies is like my son. I would want to actually protect both of them and hope that they can get past this, get past this situation and rectify it, because I think that the level of punishment that was put on Billy, well, first it was unprecedented. There's never anything like this ever happened in the whole history of gaming that someone has been punished on a level like this. So it was really not needed, not necessary. So there's got to be a way to, there is a simple way to get past it, just for a higher level of information to come in, and also for people to kind of relax and step down from their current positions that Billy's so guilty, when Billy most likely, due to new evidence that could be coming up, is probably not guilty at all.
Yeah.
And that simplifies it. But no, I have no knives drawn for Guinness. That's not even right the way to put it. I just thought I have only goodwill for everybody involved, and hope to see this rectify itself as soon as possible. And I think
That's it on it. So, I told you, Walter's trying to protect Guinness. I'm just saying that to my friend. But all right, well, that's a crazy history from 1983 all the way to 2019. And I'm a huge Guinness fan myself. Walter actually adjudicated my Tetris 99 record earlier this year. So, I'm always supportive of Guinness. Like I said, big shout outs to the Guinness Book of World Records Gamers Edition, and the new copy is out 2020. Make sure you get it. And I don't really travel. Well, I travel a lot, but there's no bookstore that carries Guinness in Jamaica, so I gotta pick up a copy myself. But you guys should check it out as well. Make sure you get your copy of the Guinness Book Gamers Edition. And Walter, thank you for going over that long history.
Thank you so much.
I always wanted to put your history down because, I'm a huge fan of the book. When that book came out in 2008, I've gotten that book. I've gotten 2009. I got every single book all the way up until 2019. And before I get back to Jamaica, I'm definitely copying it. So anyway, guys, that's it for us. I got a lot of work to do, and I got a lot long traveling before I get back to Jamaica. I hope you guys enjoyed this content. Leave a comment in the comment section below. And if you guys want to find out more about Walter Day, you can check out the Walter Day the trading card. It's called the Walter Day Trading Card Collection, right?
No, the website is called thewalterdaycollection.com.
Oh, the WalterDayCollection.com, where you can check out Walter Day's trading card catalog, where he documents all of the people that make up the video game history, their contributions, from as small as people who publish news on gaming, to people who set records on gaming, to designers for games, to developers of games, to leaders of games, to the content itself, video games history like Pac-Man and Donkey Kong and Mario and etc. etc. You guys can check out all that other stuff. Or you can also check Walter Day out on his Facebook at facebook.com/Walter Day. Until then, guys, see you in the next one.